Okay, so in this video, I just wanted to talk briefly about um, what it's like being a digital entrepreneur. So this year, at the end of August just gone, I've celebrated 4 years of being a full-time digital entrepreneur. And for quite a number of years, I had hoped that I'd end up making money online and that I'd be able to do that because I like this idea of residual income. So you do lots and lots of really hard work at one time, and you then make an income off that hard work on a monthly basis. That's kind of the idea. And I like the idea of not being tied down to a workplace, not working, say, an hour's work for an hour's pay. And so I just wanted to make a video talking about kind of what my story was there, how I transitioned to going full time, and how I've then managed to make a go of this full time for 4 years. What I'll say up front is I've made more money in a year over the last couple of years than I had ever made working for an employer. And it's been a lot harder work as well, but it's been a lot less stressful generally. And I'm in a much better place kind of from a mental health perspective and all those sort of things. Thank you. Brighton's quite close. So obviously this is a live video for anyone who watches this afterwards. So when I randomly seem to spout something that seems to break up what I'm saying, it's because I'm reading the live chat bit and occasionally obviously replying or commenting on chats. So going back to 2015, I had been making, I'd actually been making videos online since about 2003, 2004, and then moved on to YouTube in 2007. I had been writing books and just sort of selling PDF downloads on my website since about 2003, 2004-ish as well. And then got into things like Amazon Kindle and doing self-published books and stuff like that. I tried to get a publisher, but after chasing lots of publishers and then hearing horror stories of the amount of lack of control you have over your work, it just felt like, well, I'm making an income from publishing them myself. So I just lost interest in chasing publishers. If a publisher approached me nowadays, I'd possibly say yes, depending on what deal they offered, but I'm not going to chase anyone. So I'd been doing bits and pieces for a while. I've been doing e-courses online. I used to sell, so this is going back 2003, 2004 onwards. There wasn't the kind of high-speed internet we've got now. So I used to sell audio versions. For example, I created an Ericksonian hypnotherapy e-course that was an audio course rather than a video course. And I created a workbook to go with that. The workbook was about 180,000 words long. The audio course was around 100 hours in length. So I created that and used to sell that on a CD-ROM. So it'd be audio tracks, and then I'd create a CD-ROM so that you click on what you want to listen to, and then it plays on the CD-ROM, and you can click on the workbook and download the workbook to your computer, things like that. So I was selling that on eBay because there was nowhere I could find to have it kind of uploaded as a proper course, and I'd always wanted it as a proper course, but I was selling it on eBay for I think £50 or something. And so I would make a CD-ROM and someone would buy it and I'd post it to them. And so obviously I did all that hard work once. I wrote the whole thing and I audio recorded the whole thing and created a template of the CD-ROM on my computer. And then every time someone bought one, I just had to burn off a CD-ROM, print the cover of it and everything, and then post it off to someone. And so I'd been making a bit of money online anyway, and I'd kind of got in my mind from the early 2000s that that's what I'd like to do. Ideally, I'd like to make money online rather than, for example, at the time I was working at different points over the years. I'd worked in different full-time jobs. Sometimes I'd not done a full-time job or I'd done part-time. and alongside all of any work I've ever done, which has all been in family work and mental health and things like that, alongside all of that, I was making working as a hypnotherapist, and then from kind of 2005-ish, I was getting more into doing a lot more teaching and teaching live courses as well. So I was doing all that alongside a full-time job at times and part-time job at other times and no job at other times, especially around when I got ran over in 2005 and lost my full-time job. And so literally just had to do hypnotherapy and hypnotherapy training courses to make income. And what I'd always seen is actually the way forward as a hypnotherapist, if you're an ethical hypnotherapist, you'll have a mentality of, my job is to make it so that you as a client never have to see me ever again. And I have to try and achieve that as quick as possible. So that would be my goal, is how to get clients to never have to see me again. But when you're being ethical like that, it means you need a much higher turnover of clients. And so you're constantly doing lots of advertising, doing lots of things like free workshops, writing articles for newspapers, for magazines, doing everything you can to keep your reputation out there, keep people knowing who you are and kind of hopefully wanting to come to you. And then you'll see people perhaps 3-6 times maybe, and then you constantly have to be getting new clients in. And so although you might charge quite a lot per client session, actually, when you work out how many hours you're putting into just getting those clients there, it kind of takes the edge off that nice sounding big payments. You get a lot of these courses that say earn £50 an hour as a hypnotherapist or whatever, and you can earn £50 or £100 an hour or whatever you happen to be charging for your area. The trouble is, for every hour of therapy you do, you'll be doing maybe 5 or 10 hours of doing promotional work, doing other stuff to try and get that client there, and perhaps paying for advertising and all these other bits and pieces. So I'd been doing hello from the US, or hello back to the US. So I'd been doing some digital stuff already, making MP3 downloads. I had a website, personalfreedom.co.uk, that I started in about 2003, 2004. And I used to sell MP3s there and had a few hundred MP3s available. Then when I got on YouTube, I turned a lot of those MP3s into YouTube videos. But back in those days, this 2007, used to have to create YouTube videos no more than 10 minutes, which really annoyed me. So I used to have to break up my tracks and used to have to create playlists with them and say, right, here's and there's still some remnants of this on my channel if you go hunting for them. So it'd be like, here's this 30-minute thing, here's part 1, here's part 2, here's part 3. And I'd have all 3 parts in a playlist, and you'd have to listen to the playlist. And so I was trying to use YouTube, and then realized I'm going to have to make shorter videos, because it's no good me doing these full-length tracks that I can't put on there. And then eventually YouTube caught up and said, okay, you can now upload longer videos. So I obviously did. In 2015, I was making a reasonable bit on the side of income from my digital stuff. So I'd got, I think, 3 or 4 e-courses that I'd created for a company called Udemy. And so I had those available. I had got a couple of books that I'd released, well, more than a couple, probably about 10 or 12 books I'd released. And so they were for sale as paperback books, as ebooks. And I obviously was on YouTube. And on YouTube, I was probably making about £20 or something a month, so not exactly a lot. I hadn't really done YouTube since about 2010-ish through to 2015, this kind of time of year, 4 years ago, because I kind of left YouTube and deleted nearly all of my videos back in 2010, because of all the trolling, and it was mainly from other hypnotherapy instructors back then. So when I started on YouTube, I by 2008 got very big around teaching hypnotherapy and stuff online, and so I would demonstrate techniques online. I would talk about things. I would do mental health videos. So for people who kind of essentially what I would help a client with, but on YouTube to help people learn stuff about their own mental health. I was doing relaxation videos, all sorts of different things. And especially my educational videos, hypnotherapy educational videos, became really, really, really popular. But that had a negative impact on what was going on in the comments section of my videos. All of a sudden, I'd get hypnotherapists, hypnotherapy trainers attacking me, saying, "Why on earth would anyone come and take my course, which costs £3,000-4,000, if you're teaching them the techniques online for free on YouTube?" So this was really, really angering a lot of hypnotherapy trainers. Now, obviously, they're all on YouTube as well, doing exactly what I was doing. But back then, they were all not seeing the value of being able to offer some free content and sharing stuff with people and educating people about things that when my logic was when I was a teen, I wanted to learn hypnotherapy, and you're just priced out of it. You can't, the courses are thousands of pounds. The books that actually teach you something are perhaps 30, 40, 50 pounds upwards for the books. All you can get is the cheap self-hypnosis books, which cost like a tenner or something. And so I thought, I've got this technology now that I didn't have as a child. And so anyone interested as a teenager or a young adult who thinks, I'd possibly like to get into doing hypnotherapy, I've got the ability to teach them stuff, and then they can see whether it's something they do like or not. So I just started teaching it, but I got so annoyed with all the negativity from the rest of the apparently healing, kind, caring community that I, in 2010, deleted over 600 of my videos and just thought, sod this, I'm not doing it anymore. All I'm trying to do is help. And back then, my channel wasn't monetized or anything, so I wasn't making a penny from doing this. And I thought, I'm putting in like 20, 30 hours or whatever a week, and I'm not getting anything back for it, not expecting anything back for it, but what I am getting is all this hate. So deleted all my videos. And then when I started thinking, right, I'm going to be a full-time digital entrepreneur in 2015, I started back on YouTube. And unfortunately, this time round, all my videos that is the main focus of my channel around mental health and educational stuff, teaching people about doing therapy, things like that, and more recently about autism and what have you, have not really been popular. For some reason, the bedtime stories, which were never ever popular. So back in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, the bedtime stories, no one would ever pay attention to them, really. It was very rare for people to really care about them. And yet, for some reason, this time round, they've become the thing, irritatingly, that's become the popular thing on my channel. So what happened in 2015 is I was doing a full-time job. I was in a middle management kind of role. I was doing, heading up a very high level kind of family support team. And we dealt with the families that the government in the UK classed as the most challenging families in the country. So what they wanted was teams in every local authority here to work with what the government had identified as being the top 1% of most difficult families to work with in the country. And we had to go into those families, sort them out. We had to stop criminal and antisocial behavior within the family. We had to get the parents back into work. We had to get the kids back into school. We had to make sure that everyone had all their medical needs met, etc. Loads of stuff. And we were expected to have 100% success rate as far as the government were concerned, which clearly is unrealistic and a stupid goal to have. So that's what I was doing. I was managing a team of staff who went and did that job, and I did that job as well as managing them. So I had my own caseload. And my manager changed. I had a manager that was a brilliant manager who was aware of the fact that I was autistic and the fact that I wasn't diagnosed at that point, but she was very confident that I was autistic. I was going through the diagnosing process, but that's obviously another story I've shared in other videos about how long it takes to go for a diagnosis and go through from when you see a GP through to finally getting a bit of paper that says you are or you aren't autistic. But she had said, because of the type of work we're doing family work, she had worked a lot in autism. And on our first day of meeting each other, she said, I think you're autistic. Is it okay if I treat you as if you are? And I said, I think I'm autistic as well. I'm more than happy for you to treat me as if I am. And so she was brilliant with me and made sure my work environment was conducive to getting the best out of me. My new manager, who I'd got towards the end of 2014-ish, wasn't the same. She was very much of the attitude of, you do as you're told, you don't get to dictate to me how your work environment is, you're a member of staff, and would say to me things like, do you have some kind of a mental problem? You don't seem to be able to kind of understand things properly, etc. And so I got very depressed and I got suicidal and felt very trapped in the job. And then in 2015, I was told, right, you've lost your job. And so I kind of argued and said, because they'd removed my position. And I said, you've got to offer me redundancy. So they said, yes, you're right. They checked with their legal department. And so I was offered redundancy. And the money I was offered was enough money to last me for 6 months if I failed at making any money elsewhere. And so I thought, right, 6 months to successfully be a digital entrepreneur. That was my goal. And 4 years later, obviously I still am. So I succeeded. But what happened was I literally put hours and hours and hours to build off of what I'd already done. So the books I'd already got available, the couple of e-courses I'd already got available, having a YouTube channel. I thought, let's get back onto YouTube again. And so I just started doing all this stuff again and putting full-time hours into it. So, 80 to 120-ish hours a week, literally every waking moment, I would be doing stuff, making courses and writing books and doing YouTube. And through 2015, so September through the rest of 2015 and through all of 2016, I was posting 5 videos a week on my YouTube channel. 2017, I cut down to 3 videos a week because 5 was a lot of hard work. 3 was also a lot of hard work. So by 2018, I cut down to 1 video a week and have stuck at that kind of amount ever since. But what had happened was, just looking to make sure I check, I had some things I thought, I'm going to make sure I say these things. So I was building off of stuff I'd already done. And for example, on Udemy, where my e-courses are hosted, I started initially thinking, right, let's create a course every couple of weeks. So take a couple of weeks to create a new course. But I churned out really bad courses. So I deleted nearly all the courses. But through September, October 2015, I just created endless courses, like courses on trance and how to utilize trance in everyday life, courses on working ideodynamically, courses on treating anxiety, helping with sleep problems, all sorts of different things. And none of them were up to a decent standard. They're all far too rushed. And so I just deleted them all and thought, right, let's take a bit more time over my courses. And now I've got 16 courses over on Udemy, covering mainly hypnotherapy topics and autism and parenting and things like that. So that's kind of how I started making that income. And my Udemy income was the main income and still is the main income. I get probably about 1,500 new students every single month on my Udemy courses. And so it was about promoting that and using social media, which I don't like doing. But you have to use social media if you obviously want to reach people. So I would use social media, I'd do blogging, and I would get myself into newspapers and magazines and other people's blogs and do podcasts, all sorts of things, just to try and get myself out there as a trainer again, because I hadn't done that for so many years as a trainer, kind of trying to reach out to people. And initially, I was a bit nervous, thinking, will I be able to make enough money to cover all of my outgoings? So I had that buffer zone of having a little bit of money when I left my job. But I thought, will I be able to actually cover my outgoings enough here to make success of it? So I was setting up live courses. Hello from Australia. That's a long way away. So I was setting up live courses, and I was doing a lot of talks as well, because I wanted to make sure I made income. I was worried that my digital stuff wouldn't all work out. But by the end of 2015 into the beginning of 2016, I had started making enough money online that I thought, you know what, I don't have to keep running all these live courses. I'm not very good face to face with people. I don't like lots of uncertainty in things. I don't like interacting too much with people. If I can, I like to shut myself down and keep myself alone and just do limited interaction, just for very brief periods of time, but kind of on my terms. And if you run a course, it's partially on your terms because you're the one running it, but at the same time, it's not 100% on your terms, because you can't just say, oh, I can't be bothered now, I'm not going to do it. You've got to now attend because people are paying you, and you've got to teach what people are paying you to teach. And I prefer just to sit down and say, let's have an interesting conversation and see where the conversation takes it. So even around hypnotherapy, I'm much more a person who prefers to sit and chat with people about hypnotherapy and just see where that conversation goes, rather than say, right, I've got to teach you A, B, and C today, because A, B, and C might not be what I'm interested in at that moment in time. And something really interesting might come up in the group, and I can't delve into it because I'm not supposed to be teaching that. So I find it quite restrictive doing that. So I carried on writing. I wrote a couple of books. I'd written a sleepy bedtime story for children based on because how I developed doing bedtime stories was when I worked in residential children's homes going back to 2000. And in that job, the kids have often been abused and had all sorts of things happen that make it so they're really scared in a children's home at night to go to bed and fall asleep in their own room. Many of the children, well, all of the children have behavioral problems, which is why they're in the children's home, but many of them are autistic, have diagnoses like ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder, all these sort of things. And because I knew hypnosis from being a teenager and into my early 20s, I thought, why don't I just use these skills to help get the kids to sleep? So I would read whatever book the child wants me to read. So back then, the Lord of the Rings films were coming out. So the book that most of the children wanted was something like The Hobbit. So I'd sit reading The Hobbit, but I would read The Hobbit in my way, not as someone else might read The Hobbit. So I would emphasize any word that I read in The Hobbit that could be to do with going deeper and relaxing more or anything like that, or falling asleep, anything like that. If I could find a way of making that word sound more sleepy, I would emphasize it in a sleepy kind of way. I would read in time with the child's breathing. I would talk so that as I'm reading, when they breathe in, I'd be talking normally like this, and then as they breathe out, I'd deepen my voice and keep reading but slow my tone down a bit and drag it out a little to stretch, so that they build rapport with me reading, and that then deepens their out breath. And so I was doing these different techniques to help kids to fall asleep while I was reading to them, whereas other staff would read to them and then say, right, it's time for bed now. And they then close the book and the child's still wide awake, fully alert and misbehaving. Whereas I would go into the child's room, I'd read for say 5 minutes to them, and they'll be fast asleep and they'll stay asleep for the whole night. And so when I left, I ended up having to teach lots of the other staff these techniques, because the other staff would say, hang on a minute, I work on shift and I'm up until 3 or 4 in the morning trying to get these kids to sleep. You come on shift and the kids are asleep at sort of 10 p.m. You need to teach us what you're doing. So I started teaching the staff how to do this kind of sleepy bedtime tales kind of approach. And then I got into parenting work after doing residential work. And I would say to parents who have problems getting their kids to sleep, here's what you do. And so I would teach the parents that. And then one parent said to me once, look, you can do these techniques reading any book. You can just open up any story and you can read it in a way that sends someone to sleep. We're not so good at doing that. Could you write a story that's designed around your techniques rather than having to fit your techniques around a story? So that's what I went and did. I wrote The Rabbit Who Came to Tea. And I wrote that in my book, 2006 book, Parenting Techniques That Work, which is a very blunt, to the point book that essentially just says, here's the techniques. Because my logic at the time was, if you're a busy parent who's really struggling to find time for anything, who's dealing with lots of challenges with your kids or whatever, the last thing you want is to have to wade through a 300-page book to find the bit of advice you need for dealing with the problem you've got in front of you. So I just wrote it bluntly, saying, I'm not going to give you the theory. I'm not going to give you the research. I'm just going to literally say, here's what to do. And that's all this book will be. It'll just be all of here's the bit that says what to do. So I wrote that. And one thing was I included the story, The Rabbit Who Came to Tea, which was my first kind of self-written sleepy bedtime tale. And so in 2015, so getting back to the point, 2015, I decided, right, now I'm trying to make money online. One thing that I'll do is write more of these sleepy bedtime tales to send kids to sleep that parents can read. And I'll include instructions and stuff saying, here's how to read these stories. But the stories will be based around my approach to sending people to sleep. And so I wrote 11 children's bedtime stories in the book, Sleepy Bedtime Tales, and released that in 2016. Unfortunately, The Rabbit Who Wants to Fall Asleep came out at the same time as my book came out. And that story, which in my opinion isn't particularly child friendly, sounds like you're doing hypnosis. It has the word now, I think 81 times in one story, and the word sleep written in it in some form, like sleep or asleep, in some form written, I think 86 times or something, just in one single story for children. And the whole thing is essentially direct hypnosis. It's, you will fall asleep, you are feeling tired, and that kind of thing written into the story, which anyone who's listened to my adult stories will know I don't do that. I don't tell a whole story where every few sentences I'm saying, you will fall asleep, you are getting tired. That's not how a story flows. So my book, in my opinion, my 11 stories are better than the one that became incredibly famous and sold 40,000 copies every single week. My one, I tried to get some promotion for it, and a PR company just said there's no point even trying, because this guy, his book is out there already. It literally has just come out before yours. And so I kind of missed the boat on that one. But I wrote a sequel to that, Relaxing Tales for Children. So there's 22 stories to help children to fall asleep that parents can read, to help them all fall asleep or relax, that parents can then read to them. And the word sleep and the word now and those kind of phrases rarely crop up in the stories, because they're stories, not someone trying to do hypnosis directly on someone. And so after that, I wrote my autobiography, Look Into My Eyes, sharing what it's like to be autistic at different ages from birth to adulthood. So I started writing all these books to try and create a bit more income as an author, again, so that you've got that income coming in. Obviously as a digital entrepreneur, you've got that income coming in once you've done the work. The income just keeps coming in every single month. So it could be that the income is only a few pounds every month, or it could be that something takes off and you suddenly make tens of pounds or hundreds of pounds a month from one item, one book or whatever. So I was doing that. I was doing my e-courses on Udemy, and I've, as I say, now got up to 16 e-courses. In my first full year of being a digital entrepreneur, I made, I think, something like £24,000 or something. In my second full year as a digital entrepreneur, I made something like £35,000, which was more than I'd ever made in any full-time job that I'd ever done. There are benefits to being a digital entrepreneur. So April last year, my wife's mum had a really, really, really bad stroke. And fortunately, she was okay. So that's fortunate. But fortunately, I had decided to record all of my YouTube videos for 2018 in the last 3 months of 2017. So on top of doing everything I was doing in 2017, I recorded 52 additional YouTube videos and scheduled them for the whole of 2018, so that I then had that work already done. So the only ones I didn't schedule is back then in 2018, I was doing, every time I passed 1,000 subscribers, I would do a sort of thank you bedtime story, where I would make like a long bedtime story, let's say 45 minutes to an hour long, as a thank you for people who've subscribed and helped me to reach an additional 1,000 subscribers. So I obviously couldn't pre-record those because I didn't know. I was just doing those when the time came. I also didn't pre-record the 40 bedtime stories I did back to back for my 40th birthday. So last year when I turned 40 in August, I made 40 bedtime stories and did one a day for 40 days on my channel. So those of you who were around will remember that and remember seeing just endless bedtime stories crop up in your news feeds probably, or your YouTube feed. And but my main channel videos, the 52 main channel videos, I'd recorded at the end of 2017. And what that meant was that when my wife's mum had her stroke, I was able to do what I could to be there for her and to be supportive while my wife had to go to work and my wife's sister had to go to work. I was able to then be there and give up my time without it affecting my YouTube channel too much, because most of the time I knew as an absolute minimum, I would always have that one video every week going live. I don't have to have anything to do with that. So it was very hard work in 2017 to do an additional 52 videos at the end of the year to prepare for this. And I did do extra videos from time to time, just spontaneous videos and live videos and things like that, especially around things like Autism Awareness Week and various mental health days and what have you. But it meant that I can give up most of 2018 to being as supportive as I can to my wife's mum and my wife, and making sure that I can do what I can for them. So that's an advantage, again, of being a digital entrepreneur, that had I been doing an hour's work for an hour's pay, I would have been in the same boat as my wife and my wife's sister, that I'd have to go to work, say full time, as they were having to do. And I wouldn't be able to keep taking time off and take annual leave to be able to help. But because I can work essentially when I choose to work, obviously it has some impact, say, on my income, for example, because if I'm not online and not creating new content, then obviously I'm not kind of keeping myself out there, and gradually my income starts to drop down. But generally, if someone needs help for a few months, I could then help them and know that I've still got an income coming in behind the scenes, whether I'm working or not, whether I'm creating content or not. So I love this idea of not having an hour's work tied to an hour's pay. Instead, I can say, right, I've got this week, I'm going to do 120 hours this week, really go for it and get loads of work done, because for the next few weeks, I'm not going to have the opportunity. And so that's what I would do. And obviously it then means things like, if I want, I can free myself up towards Christmas, or if I take any holidays. I think, especially if you're self-employed, if you work for an employer, obviously you take a week's holiday, you still get paid for that week's holiday because your employer is paying you holiday pay. if you're self-employed, you take a week off and close your business for a week, you make no money for the week that you've taken a holiday. And as a digital entrepreneur, you take a week off and you make a week's income without having to have been in work doing a week's work. So I quite like that as well. One challenge is I spend all my time, my phone's going off next to me now continuously. I spend all my time on my phone. I literally wake up in the morning. First thing I do, check Facebook, check Instagram, check Twitter, check my emails, check Udemy, and then try and reply to everything I need to reply to over those first morning hours before actually getting on with my day. And then throughout the day, I'll keep checking my phone, any new messages that have come in. I'll attempt, if I've got time, I'll try and reply to all the messages. Sometimes messages come through and I miss them, especially on YouTube. If someone replies to a comment that's, say, a year old, then it doesn't show up on my list because it's a year old. So it shows up under where that comment is a year earlier. So when people do that, I just don't see the comment, or I know someone's commented, but to find the comment is really, really difficult. So I then often miss being able to, I try and reply if I can, but it's harder. And the other one is if people ask for something that's going to take longer than a minute or two to reply to, I can't necessarily always do that on my phone or do that in the situation I'm in. And sometimes I'll miss things because it gets to the end of the day, I haven't replied to it yet. It gets to the beginning of the next day and I've forgotten about it. But I do literally all day long check my phone and constantly have things coming through. So even though I might say, for example, I'm off for a week, I might not create content for a week, but in that week, I will still be doing social media. I'll still be sharing stuff. I'll still be answering questions and engaging with my audiences across all the different platforms on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Udemy, people who send me emails, all these various places. So being a digital entrepreneur does kind of take up your life, even when you're not doing the work. Because of that element of it. It's very hard to switch off. It's very hard. I'm aware how quickly work builds up. And I used to have this in my day job that if I was off for a week, no one, because you're dealing with your own caseload, no one did your job for you. So if you were off for a week, you came back to say 300 or 400 emails that you'd have to literally go through for the next week, along with all the work you're properly doing in that week. You'd have to go through trying to answer everything and do all the work. And so as a digital entrepreneur, it's very, very hard to shut off. It's very hard to say, okay, I'm going away for a week with my wife. I won't look at my phone. I won't check Facebook. I won't check my emails. I won't check Instagram. I won't check Twitter. It's very hard to do that because I'm aware that when I do then check it a week later, my YouTube will probably say, you've got 150 or 200 or whatever comments on your videos. My Facebook would say similar. My emails would say a lot higher than that. So all of a sudden, that just then looks overwhelming, and you have to make the decision: do I go through all of this stuff and try and reply to it all, or do I just try and write it off and think, well, if any of it's important, hopefully the person will contact me back. So that part of it is a bit of a challenge. I've been talking for 39 minutes. That's a long time. So this video was about me celebrating being a digital entrepreneur. I've got some changes to make around my YouTube channel. It's been obviously 4 years of doing what I'm doing. 4 years, it's been, well, since 2007, the focus of my YouTube channel has been on mental health, autism awareness. It's been on teaching people how to be therapists, how to do different therapy stuff like hypnotherapy, how to do hypnosis, how to work with people with depression, anxiety, my training, as well as parenting and family work, which is the bulk of my training. The other area of my training has been in treating anxiety and depression. So that's always been kind of my specialty, was always in work, I would do the parenting and family work for employers. Out of work, I would see clients for depression, anxiety. So that was kind of how I split it. And so with YouTube, I was sharing lots of information about all of this and trying to be as helpful as I could to people like myself who want to learn about therapy and learn about hypnosis. And so I try and be helpful and in plain English, educate them. I do a lot of that obviously now on Udemy on my e-courses, but I still had been doing lots here on YouTube. And also, as a therapist, I feel that it's kind of my duty to help people if I can. And so I would then, the best way to help people, or the best way to help the most people, was to share self-hypnosis tracks, was to share self-help tracks, was to talk about his ways of understanding or tips around depression or anxiety. Here's some things that can help. Obviously, no one video would give all the answers, but it would give, like, here's a piece of an answer. So one might be, just taking my recent videos, they were targeted at people wanting to learn therapy rather than wanting to do self-help. But I obviously uploaded a video talking about the depressive thinking style, the depressive attributional style, and that's something you learn about when you learn about treating depression as a psychotherapist. And that's only one small part of depression, but it's helpful for therapists to know about that, because then you know whether the client in front of you, sometimes people don't know that they're depressed. The number of people who feel really bad or feel really low or think in certain ways, and they don't realize that they're on the verge of becoming depressed or are depressed or whatever. And so it's helpful if a therapist can pick up on these things, because they can start then addressing the way someone's thinking. But as someone who is perhaps depressed, they can see that and then perhaps relate and think, oh, I suppose actually I'd never realized it, but maybe I think a bit like this, or when I'm at my worst, I think like that, or whatever. So it's not the whole story, but it's part of the story. So that was the idea, that I would upload these videos and they'd be part of a story that would help people to understand those with challenges better. And the same around autism. I'm a big proponent that it's not about autism awareness. It should be about autism understanding, that there's tons of stuff trying to promote awareness. And then people do token gestures like saying, oh, we're going to do an autism hour for, in the shops, and we'll have the lights dimmed and we'll have the music off for an hour in the morning. And then they'll normally say, during Autism Awareness Week, or something stupid like that. And you think, well, no, actually, it needs to be done all the time. You need to understand autistic people, not just have awareness that they're out there. So I try and put things in plain English, and that's how my channel had always focused since 2007 through till today. And what had happened was that at some point a year ago, suddenly my bedtime stories were the thing that took off. So even though I've only got, I think, 120 bedtime stories or something on my channel out of about 700 and something videos, and previous to that, I've deleted over 600 videos. So I've had, perhaps approaching 1,500 videos on my YouTube channel since 2007, maybe even more than that. And only 120 or so of them have been bedtime stories. And yet those have been the thing that have become really popular. And so something irritating has happened in relation to YouTube's algorithms. It used to be that if I made a video, say, talking about autism, then that would show up in search results around autism. If I made a video about depression, that would show up in search results around depression. If I made a video, say, teaching about hypnosis, that would show up in search results around hypnosis. What ended up happening was that, and this has become more prominent just over the last few months, that the videos aren't showing up for the keywords that are to do with the video. So, for example, my video, I don't know, autism and anger video, nearly all of the search results for autism and anger video are Dan Jones sleep stories. And So what that means is that because my videos are showing up for Dan Jones Sleep Stories, not for autism and anger, even though Dan Jones Sleep Stories isn't in the title, the description, or the tags, that's what it shows up as. And I was at Summer in the City a few weeks back, and I was told there by someone who obviously knows about this stuff, who's spoken with YouTube about it all, and they said that obviously it has a negative impact on your channel if it seems that videos you're posting aren't really being watched by your subscribers. YouTube then lowers your channel down the rankings in relation to all of your videos, because the videos you post, not even your own subscribers watch. And so the problem I've got is that lots of my subscribers have ended up subscribing, unfortunately, because of the sleep stories. And so whenever I post all my other videos, which are the bulk of my videos I post on my channel, they don't get many views. They don't get many views from subscribers, and they don't get many views from non-subscribers, because the non-subscribers, it just doesn't show in the search results to them. The videos show up for things like Dan Jones Sleep Stories, even when it's actually about autism or depression or anxiety or whatever else, and nothing to do with sleep or nothing to do with sleep stories. And so YouTube have already stopped showing my videos in the search results so much, and have been showing them for the wrong kinds of keywords, not anything to do with the video, because my channel is known for sleep now rather than being known for mental health and autism. And so those videos also have much lower retention rate. So what that means is that someone clicks on the video and the retention rate is how many people make it how far through the video. So for example, my sleep stories are normally something like 64% retention rate. So that means that 64% of people make it through the video. And my, say, autism videos will have a retention rate of something like 15 or 20%. So only 15 or 20% make it through the video. And so because YouTube prioritizes watch time and YouTube prioritizes how many people you can manage to retain through your video, because YouTube wants viewers on their channel to stay watching their channel, stay watching YouTube. So they want you to make it through to the end of the video and then start watching a video after that video. That's what YouTube's goal is. And so what I was told while I was at Summer in the City is that as long as the channel has videos being uploaded that your own audience doesn't watch, then YouTube penalizes you for that and says, well, if their own audience doesn't watch this, then no one else is going to watch this. If the own audience doesn't watch it and very few subscribers when they find it. So for example, if someone finds, as I think happens, people are looking for Dan Jones Sleep Stories, just because I've used it already, my autism and anger video shows up as a top result. So they then click it, not because they want to watch the autism and anger video, but because they want to click it and maybe then click my Dan Jones Hypnosis channel, so that they go through and then they can find a sleep story. And so that means that video has been used as a way of getting to the channel, but you've ended up not watching the whole video, and because you had no interest in it. And so it looks like, oh, well, people clicked through to it. They didn't have any interest in it, so they clicked away from it. So because of that, I've had to make a tough decision. I've spoken to lots of people about, what should I do? As I've often said on my channel, I don't particularly like making the sleep stories because it's very unnatural for me how they're made. I can do hypnotic storytelling when it's face-to-face with a client, or when it's with a group and where you've got actual content to work with, and you've got all of the metaphors given off by a client. Clients will talk about how they need to gain perspective on their problem, and they need to, they just feel something or other, and they use all of this kind of language. They give you all of the metaphors, and so all I do is I create, as you've seen on my videos about sleep stories, and about making hypnotic stories, I use the content given by a client to create the story. And I can't do that when I'm talking to YouTube, when I'm making a YouTube video. So I don't like making the sleep stories. I find I get very angry, very anxious, very sort of, I just get really worked up trying to create them. And so I really, really hate doing them. And I did consider deleting all of the sleep stories from my YouTube channel as a way of trying to, because that's not what my channel has ever been about. One of the options I'd spoken to people about was saying, well, do I just delete all of my sleep stories? Because if I delete all the sleep stories, then hopefully YouTube would see that that's not what my channel is about. My channel is about mental health and autism awareness and education, educating people about hypnosis and therapy and things like that. And obviously the difficulty was that if I deleted all of the sleep stories, there are people who like the sleep stories and use them, who would then perhaps think, well, actually, I found it really therapeutic and helpful. So it's for those people who find them therapeutic that I thought, well, I can't delete the sleep stories. So obviously what I've decided to do instead is that I'm going to end up focusing my channel just on the sleep stories. I know that's not what I want to do, but it's unfortunately what the audience seems to want, that I seem to have developed over the last year or so. So my plan will be that obviously moving forward, as I say, this was actually about just being a digital entrepreneur, for celebrating 4 years, and what the way forward is now is that on YouTube I will make it just about the sleep stories. So from time to time I'll post something else. I've got a really good neuroscientist friend, a guy called Dr. David Lewis. He has a lot of really interesting self-help stuff that he knows and does. And so I'm sure from time to time, as additional videos on top of the sleep stories, I'll post videos with him, either him talking or us talking together or whatever. And I might post the odd other video. But the idea would be that 90% or higher of the videos on my channel will just be me posting sleep stories every week. And I'll kind of not have much else to do with my YouTube channel. I'll just upload the sleep stories. And I will focus on my blog for mental health and autism awareness and things like that. And obviously I will, and also post about stuff, helpful stuff for therapists, people who want to learn about hypnosis and things. And then obviously I'll have all my e-courses teaching all that sort of stuff. And I will post more on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all about that other stuff. So all of the other areas of my social media and my blogs and everything will be focused on the stuff I enjoy and the stuff I want to get out there and the stuff that makes it feel like I've got a purpose and value. Because obviously that's the big thing, is feeling like I'm contributing something to people's mental well-being and to helping people understand things and what have you. So all of that I'll do off of YouTube, predominantly written, other than my e-courses, obviously, which are video courses. And then on YouTube, I will probably just make one sleep story a week and see how that goes down on here. But we'll just make sure that my YouTube channel focuses just on sleep stories and not on mental health and things like anxiety, depression treatment, addiction treatment, and those sort of areas. So that's kind of my way forward, as I say. So as a digital entrepreneur, that's what I plan on doing in relation to my YouTube channel, which will hopefully then match what YouTube's algorithms want. Us YouTubers, we're always at the mercy of the algorithms. They kind of just are focused on trying to get more views, more watch time on their platform. And so that's what I'll do with YouTube. Obviously, I will still attend events like Summer in the City. With any luck, I'll attend next year. And hopefully the events that I attend will be focused on things like autism and stuff. So I'll still have opportunities to do all those things. It's just that I won't be doing it so much on my YouTube channel. Again, one part of this was that someone I shared the stage with when I was at Summer in the City, she actually stopped her YouTube channel, but does stuff off of YouTube on other, like on Instagram and stuff. And she was on the panel for autism. So even though she's autistic, but she doesn't post about autism or anything on any of her social media. So I saw that as a positive. I thought, well, so it means that I can still get to these events and still contribute to the community around positive stuff around autism and portraying that autistic people can achieve stuff and all that sort of stuff that I like doing. I can still do that, but I don't necessarily have to do it all on YouTube. So that was kind of a big thing for me, was realizing, so I'm not shutting down my opportunities by backing off of YouTube with this stuff. I can still have the opportunities. It just won't be on YouTube. I had tried I set up an Aspie Reacts YouTube channel where I was trying to focus it on autism and mental health. This is going back to, I think, the end of last year. But trying to build a channel from scratch again, and I was trying to maintain this channel and post on this channel. I couldn't do two channels at once. So I did think, right, again, back then, this is going back to October or something last year, I posted my last sleep story, I think it was in October last year, and then didn't post another one till April or something this year. So in October last year was going to be my last ever sleep story. And I was going to close down this channel entirely. And because I thought, well, I can either delete all of the sleep stories, or maybe I could just close the channel down and start again with a new channel and make sure I don't make the same mistake again and don't post any sleep stories ever, in case they accidentally become popular and people like them. And so I started doing that. And initially I couldn't let go of this channel because people kept on commenting, saying how much the sleep stories were helping them, and people kept commenting on the autism videos on here, saying how helpful they were, and on the mental health videos here. And I was starting a channel from scratch, and so I would get like 3 views on a video that, if I posted it on this channel, would get maybe 100 views or 200 views. So I thought, well, actually, it's really hard to start literally from zero and try and work up again, especially now I'm in a different place where I have to actually make an income from the digital stuff I do. Whereas in the past, when I started this YouTube channel in 2007, they didn't offer monetization. They didn't offer a way of making money from YouTube. I didn't do it for that. I was making my money offline. I did YouTube as a way of giving back to everyone. And so obviously back then, I was just doing it to be helpful because I had an income coming in. Now I want to be helpful, but at the same time, I have to think about my own time. If I'm really helpful, but I make no income, if I put, say, 40 hours a week into doing YouTube, and so because I'm doing 40 hours a week, I don't have time to do the stuff that makes me an income, then my income will gradually just drop down and I'll have no income. So that's kind of why I ended up starting a channel specifically around autism and mental health back in October or so, and then ended it in about April. I just thought, oh no, this isn't working. I think I was up to like 13 or something subscribers. I don't know, it was something really low, that I just thought, this isn't working. I've had people on this channel say things on my autism videos, things like, can you stop making videos about autism? I've got no interest in that. I just want you to do your sleep stories. I've had people say that about mental health. I've made videos about things like depression, anxiety, even my own experiences with things like depression, anxiety. And I will get comments from people saying, I've got no interest in this. I've got no interest in the fact that you've been depressed or the fact that you experience anxiety. I just want the sleep stories. And so obviously, again, that to me was motivating me to stop the sleep stories rather than to stop the mental health and depression, mental health and autism videos. It was making me think, if you've got that kind of attitude towards it, it's my channel, I will stop the sleep stories. But as I say, I've spent months talking to my wife, talking to other YouTubers, who do things like mental health, autism videos, all sorts of different things. Talking to people when I was at Summer in the City, talking to others in the industry who do, YouTube and work within YouTube, and just concluded that the easiest way forward is actually to do what I enjoy everywhere else. And so the things that, it's not as much I enjoy them, I don't not enjoy them, but that's like saying I enjoy writing books. Writing books is really, really hard work. I don't not enjoy it, but I wouldn't necessarily say I sit there thinking, oh, I'm so excited to be spending 10 hours typing. It's it's not something I enjoy. It's just not something I don't enjoy, if that makes sense. So I would do all of that elsewhere and literally just make my YouTube channel purely about sleep and about sleep stories. I will change my channel description and my channel header, and all those sort of things. And obviously I will still share about things like mental health. It's just that that'll only be on my blog, and perhaps on I'd share that obviously on Facebook, and I'll probably still in the community section on my channel. So obviously for anyone who wants to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. In the community section on the channel, I will probably share things like my blog posts. So when I write blog posts, different stuff, that's where you'll find it. Just to make sure that anyone who is interested in that kind of thing will see them come up in the feed. It's just that they won't have a video of it. So people who then get annoyed with my videos coming up, that sort of stuff will be in the feed on the community tab instead of actually having a video of it. So that's sort of on YouTube. Off of YouTube, as a digital entrepreneur, my next sort of step, I was going to keep this to an hour. It's now 1 hour and 2 minutes. Well, I was going to keep it to half an hour, in fairness. So I've gone way over. But I do that. So anyone who's still with me, thank you. So off of YouTube, I'm going to carry on making e-courses on Udemy and other places. My sleep stories will continue to be licensed out to different apps and things, as they already are. So there's lots of apps out there that you can listen to my sleep stories on. Some apps like the Slumber app, for example, you can listen to my sleep stories, but you can do things like slide in music at whatever sound you want, whatever level you want. You can slide in different background sounds. So if you wanted the sounds of a waterfall, you could do that. If you wanted sounds of a stream, you can slide that in. You can slide in sounds of countryside, all different things. And you can slide multiple ones in. So you could say, oh, I want the sound of some woodland. And so you slide that in here, woodland birds. And then you can say, I'd quite like a stream to be in this as well. So you slide in the sound of a stream. And so there's some apps like the Slumber app where you can do that kind of thing and slide in different types of sounds. And where you can also then obviously listen to me talking and have music as well. It's a shame that I can't do that kind of thing for myself, because I know, for example, on YouTube, some people would love my stories to have background sounds. I used to make a lot of stories. Anyone who's been with me, hello, Holly, been around a long time as another long-term person. Anyone who's been with me for a long time will know that all my old stories and self-hypnosis stuff, I used to create an audio track to go with it. So I would have, like, if I talked about walking into the woods, I would then have woodland sounds merge into the track. And then if I talked about going to the beach, you'd have beach sounds coming into it. I'd perhaps have background music, which would mix with the story as well. But that takes a huge amount of time doing all the editing for that, because obviously I have to create it and then I have to think, right, what am I going to do through this from the sound point of view? If I could send my tracks off to someone and say, go and turn this into something with background sounds and everything, that would be great. Unfortunately, I don't have someone I can do that with, and I can't afford to do that. So anyway, so that's YouTube. Off YouTube, I'm still going to be writing books. I'm currently writing a wellbeing for YouTubers and digital entrepreneurs book. I'm currently writing a third edition of my hypnotherapy scripts book, which is already far too long. The third edition, I've already written far too much additional scripts. So I'll have to figure out what to do with that, whether to keep it all in there or not. But there's going to be a third edition of that. That's going to be the third book in my Hypnotherapy Revealed series. So there's already Introduction to Hypnotherapy, which in my opinion is totally different to almost any other introduction to hypnotherapy type book you'll ever likely to read. My Hypnotherapy Revealed, Ericksonian Hypnotherapy or Ericksonian Approach book. And now there'll be the script book. And then after that, there's going to be 10 in the whole series. So after that, I'll then get on with book 4 eventually. So I'm still writing books. I'm writing a third children's bedtime story book, which will be 11 stories. Currently, the kind of working title, which might become the real title, is something I can't remember what it is now. Sleepy Rhyming Tales, something like that. But the idea is that these are going to be rhyming stories rather than non-rhyming stories as they were before. So I just thought it's something a bit different to do. I'm tempted to make a second, because I've 120 sleep stories on my channel. I'm tempted to make a second bedtime stories for grown-ups book, a collection of, the last one was a collection of 25, I think, stories. So I'll do another collection of, say, 25 bedtime stories from my YouTube channel. I've got some more e-courses that I've got in the works to make. So there's still quite a lot that I've got going on and got planned for the future. I've significantly cut down how many non-digital stuff I do. So I don't do many courses nowadays offline. I don't see clients anymore. I sort of stopped. I see the odd person from time to time, but very, very rarely. I pretty much stopped in 2015 or 2016. I don't give many talks nowadays. I just focus mainly on doing online content and trying to keep on top of all of the things like social media. So that's kind of where I'm at now. That it's 4 years of being a full-time digital entrepreneur. I worried for the whole of the end of 2015 when I started being a digital entrepreneur full-time. I worried that it wouldn't work out and that what would happen if I don't make enough money to live on. 2016, I was starting to make enough money just about to cover all my outgoings. 2017, I made more than I'd ever made in any kind of full-time job, except that I'd had far more time to myself and far more freedom in what I was doing. And yet I'm about to go as well. So see you later. And yet I still worry continuously about what if people stop buying my books? What if people stop taking my courses? What if people stop watching my YouTube videos? So I'm always kind of thinking of that and worrying about the future and worrying about making sure that every month I make enough money to keep a roof over my head. But it is doable. I think if you're willing to put in lots of hours, willing to put in 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week to start with as a minimum, then you can get things off the ground, but don't expect instant results. So for example, with Udemy, you can make courses. There's lots of other providers as well. It's just Udemy is the main one I use. You can make courses, but you're trying to get people to attend those courses. And to start with, you've perhaps got no reputation, no mailing list, nothing like that. And I don't have a mailing list. I got rid of my mailing list, but you don't have any audience. And so you're trying to somehow get yourself out there. And there's tips that I can give about how to do that that have worked for me. And as I say, I now get about 1,500 new students every month on my courses. But you've got to be in it for the long haul, and you've got to think, right, I'm going to make this course, and even if it makes me only £20 at the end of the month, that's brilliant. That's a start, because once you've got enough people, once you've got the momentum, so even if worst case scenario, you only made 20 quid a month on an e-course, all you do is think, right, so if I make a second e-course and that makes 20 quid, that's 40 quid a month, and a third e-course, that's 60 quid a month, and a fourth e-course, that's 80 quid a month. And so even at the absolute worst case scenario, if you've got that kind of mindset, you know that not every e-course is going to do that badly. But if you've got that kind of mindset, you know, right, so there's going to be a tipping point where suddenly I've got enough students who I can then say, oh, by the way, did you know that I've got this course as well? And you can kind of cross sell, and people start talking about your courses and taking your courses, and your income increases. The same with ebooks and self-published books, is that you make a book and you think, I don't know if anyone's going to buy it, but if I can make just 20 quid a month, yeah, if you've got that kind of mentality, if I can just make 20 quid a month, then I can build on that 20 quid. I can make 20 quid with the next book and 20 quid with the next book. And so I have really low expectations, or did when I was doing this part-time, really low expectations, and would just say, right, can I get this little amount of money? And if I can, all I have to do is make another book, and that will then increase that, and another book will increase it further. And the same on YouTube. You know, you make one video and no one watches it, or very few people watch it. But as you keep making videos, eventually people start watching them, and eventually you can monetize your channel. And then you start, I think I shared in a comment to someone the other day that in I think it was August 2017, that's before that I'd never made £100 on YouTube. And in August 2017, I think, was the first time I passed £100 on YouTube. So that's only 2 years ago. And then I think it was about May last year, I passed £200 a month of income on YouTube. So, you know, it takes a while to build up, but obviously the idea is that it's always hopefully moving forward, and the more content you create across all different platforms, the more income you make, even if it's small amounts to start with. So if you start part-time and you start doing it alongside a full-time job, putting tons of work in, it does start paying off. And so, for example, now on my YouTube channel, I think I've made a video about this reasonably recently. When I passed 30,000 subscribers, I was making like £600 a month. So, and that's about the amount I still make on YouTube. So, that's the sort of curve has gone up quite well. That I was making up until the beginning of 2017, I'd never passed £60, and then August 2017, I passed 100. May 2018, I'd passed 200, and for the last 5 or 6 months, I've been making about £600 a month. So it kind of, that's kind of how it works. It's not a quick sort of instant bit of income, but it does free up your time when you can go full time with it, or go part time in your part time job and do this part time. So anyway, thank you to anyone who's hung around for 1 hour and 13 minutes, and everyone who's joined in, obviously, through that time, or even taken the time to watch, especially those of you who've given a thumbs up. I can see that on here. It's quite nice to see a thumbs up suddenly appear. Fortunately, it doesn't show thumbs down, so it could be that there's double the number of people who've given thumbs down, for all I know. It's nice that it keeps it positive for me. So anyway, if you're not a subscriber, feel free to subscribe. If you want sleep stories, that's the way my channel's going from this point on. There'll be the odd other video, but nearly every video will be a sleep story. So I will see you on the next video, probably next week. I've been running a business I set up with my wife, that's a little shop, and anyone who follows me on like Facebook or whatever will know this. I've been running a shop called Vintage Stories, where my wife has been selling vintage and pre-loved fashion, and I've been selling my books and books by other local authors, and things like USB sticks with sleep stories on and stuff like that. And it's not turning over enough for us to decide to keep it going, so we're not going to be keeping it going, especially when it gets to the winter months. But that's been taking up a lot of my time, so I've not been able to start making the sleep stories sooner, but I'm hoping that by next week maybe I can start getting the first of the sleep stories out there. Yeah, and so Anyone who obviously wants to see what my wife does, she's on I don't know, she's on Depop. Vintage Stories is a good place to search for her. And I've got links to her, obviously, in my social media, and I'm constantly sharing all her stuff. So she sells her vintage and pre-loved clothes, handbags, and stuff like that. So anyway, thanks for joining me over here, and I will see you in the next video. See you later.